Hi, everyone. I'm going to walk you through the solution for the problems from chapter 21, problems 10 through 16. And they all share the same file, so we're going to do them together in one workbook. So 21:10 through to 21:16. So in your course shell, you can download that file and save it in your OneDrive. And make sure you add your documentation page as well. And one other thing before we get started, I would like you to name each of the rows, each of the columns. So I think I've already done it, but let's take a look at the first one for the transaction number. Yes, so I've named it transaction number. So I would like you to name the column for transaction number, the column for sales rep. When you are naming the sales rep column or range, do not use the name, okay? So pick something else, and what I picked was sales rep, but never use name, okay? It interferes with Excel, and it doesn't actually understand. It does not work well to use the name, okay? So please go ahead and name all of the columns, okay? All of them individually along here. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 named ranges. And when you do, you're all set. You can pause the video right now if you need a minute to do that. Okay, so welcome back. We're going to name this tab data, and other than naming the ranges, we're not going to do any other work to this particular tab. Instead, what we're going to do is add a new tab, and I'm going to call this 21-10, and this is where we're going to work on the solution for problem 10. So problem 10 is asking us how much revenue was made on sales transactions involving at least 50 units of makeup. So maybe we'll backtrack for a minute and take another look at this data. What we have here are transaction numbers. I'm imagining this is some sort of a retail store that perhaps has various different sales reps working. Betsy, Halligan, Ashley, Zaret, etc. And for each day, they're registering how much of a particular product, so lip gloss, foundation, lipstick, etc., they sold and in what year. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's probably not a retail store. Well, it could be, who knows, maybe these are summarized figures, but that's the data that we have. So what we're asked to do is summarize the revenue for all sales transactions that involved at least 50 units of makeup. So let's call this minimum units, and in this case it's 50. So 50 is a variable in this case. So the question is summarize the revenue for a minimum of 50 units. Suppose next week we want to do the same summary, but this time for a minimum of 75 units or 20 units. So that's why we're not going to include the number 50 in our formula, but we're going to define it as a variable here. So this is revenue. Revenue on transactions or on quantities greater than minimum. It's not greater than, it's revenue on quantities it's greater than or equal to. Let's see, what's a better way to word this? On at least 50 units. Revenue on quantities exceeding, at or exceeding minimum. Okay, there. So we are going to use a sum if statement to solve this problem. So let's get started doing that. So range. So in this case, we have to tell Excel, where should it go and look? Before I answer that, I have to think about the criteria. So the criteria that I'm going to use has to do with the number of units. It has to be greater than or equal to the minimum units. So in that case, I need Excel to go and look at the units. So I named that column units. Okay. And now we get to work with a formula inside a sum-if statement. So the way formulas inside a sum-if statement work is a little unique. So we need to use an open quotation mark around the operator. In this case, the operator will be the greater than or equal to. So I'm going to type that in, greater than or equal to. And I'm going to use a quotation mark so that I have quotes around the operator. The operator is the greater than or equal to. Now, what I really want to say is that it's greater than or equal to 50. But instead of typing the number 50, I'm going to refer to B1. And the way that I make a connection between this operator and the cell B1 is I have to include the and sign. There is actually a fancier name, it's the ampersand, but in my own mind, I think of it as the and sign, okay? So then we can click on the cell B1, and now a comma. And the final part is we have to let Excel know once you look in the unit section and you find all of the entries that are greater than or equal to the value in B1, what should Excel do next? What we want Excel to do is add up all of the dollars, okay? If you named your range dollars or dollar, make sure you don't pick the function, but make sure you select your named range. Okay, and we can close the bracket. There we go, it worked. So before we move on, I just want to backtrack and make sure that you understand the middle part of the formula, because that was probably the trickiest. So we used open and close quotes around our operator. The operator was greater than or equal to. So we had a quote mark, greater than or equal to, quote mark. Then we used the and sign, and we referred to the cell that contained the value 50, and then we closed that off with a comma. Okay, so this is a revenue amount, so we should use a dollar sign so that everyone knows that. And I don't think we need the decimals in this case. We'll get rid of them. But that's our solution. So that's 21-10 complete. Let's move on. Next, we'll do 2111. Here we're asked to solve how many units of lip gloss did CC sell in 2004. So now we're actually specifying or defining three variables. We've got a product, which is the lip gloss. We've got a sales rep, which is CC, and we've got a year, which is 2004. So let's define these here so we can keep track of this. So the product is lip gloss. Here's a little trick that I use when I'm working in Excel, and I know I'm going to be doing some sort of lookups. I actually go to the data itself and I copy the name and I paste it in here. The reason for that is if I make a typo or miss a letter, or I don't have a sufficient space, or maybe there's a comma or something that I've missed, my lookup won't work. So let's go to the data section and look for lip gloss right here. And I'm just going to copy it, paste it right here. It also saves me if I make any spelling mistakes. Okay, and sales rep. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go find that name, CC. You don't have to do it this way. You can type it out if you trust your own ability to type. And then finally, the year. I actually think I can type the year, so I'll just type it instead of going to copy it. So these are the variables that we need to work with. And so we want to find out how many units were sold. This is going to be quite an interesting problem. So we will do, we're going to use a sum if statement here because we want to add up all of the units that were sold. Sorry, let me backtrack. We're not doing a sum if, we're going to do a sum ifs with an S on the end. And the difference between a sum if and a sum ifs with an S on the end is it allows us to define more than one criteria. So we are going to define a sum range. In this case, we're looking for the number of units. So it's units. And now this is where we're going to define our criteria. So the first criteria that we have is we need to look for the sales rep. So we want to make sure that we're selecting sales for this particular rep, CC. So we want to tell Excel, go look under the sales rep section or the sales rep named range. And in that named range, look for the name CC that we've defined here. So we're not going to type CC, we're going to refer to the cell B2. Now we need to define another criteria. We actually have 3 criteria that we're going to define. The next thing we need Excel to do is go look in the product range, in the named range product, and in that range, we want Excel to look for lip gloss. So select B1, and then there's still one more. The next thing we need Excel to do is make sure that it looks only for the year 2004. Okay, so pick your year column, whatever your named range was for the year column. And then we're going to specify the criteria right here. Okay, and then we can close this bracket. There we go. Units sold 416. Okay. I am actually going to stop this video here and I'll start a new video for the next questions because I don't want the video to be too long. You might only have a few minutes to do a couple of questions and maybe you're going to come back and do the rest. So I'll pause here and I'll start a new video and I'll actually use the same workbook for another couple solutions.